Hi and welcome to this week's episode of Talking Fertility, where I come to you live every Monday morning at 11 a.m. talking all things fertility. Now today I'll be talking about organic versus non-organic. Is it really worth it? Now this is a question that I do get asked a lot when it comes to fertility. Now firstly, I'll talk about what organic is when it comes to our fruits and our vegetables. Because the reality is that unfortunately, much of our produce is contaminated with pesticides, which are used to ward off insects and prevent other animals eating the crops, to prevent weeds and fungi and bacteria growing on the crops. But unfortunately, these are used throughout the growing process. So no, you can't just wash them off when you purchase the produce. A good example of why you can't just wash it off is if you put a celery stick in a cup of food dye, you'll soon notice that the celery stick actually absorbs the food dye throughout the stick. So this is not something, unfortunately, that you can simply wash off. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't wash your fruits and vegetables. Of course, please keep doing that. But you can't get rid of, unfortunately, all of the pesticides that are used. Now, some produce does absorb more of these pesticides than others, and some people are more susceptible to these pesticides than others. So I'll cover both of these topics in a moment, and I'll also provide you with a free download to help you with this as well. But firstly, I'll just cover a couple of studies to show the impact of pesticides on fertility. Now, the first one was a School of Public Health study published last year, found that women who ate more than 2 servings of high pesticide fruits and vegetables each day, compared with women who ate an average of 1 each day, were 18% less likely to become pregnant and 26% less likely to have a live birth, compared to women with a lowest level of exposure. Now, a woman's odds of becoming pregnant increased by 79%, and her odds of delivering a live birth increased by 88% if once a day she swapped a serving of high pesticide produce to one with less pesticide residue, researchers found. Now, this relates to men as well. Pesticide exposure has been linked to negative effects on spermatogenesis, which leads to poor semen quality and erectile dysfunction in men as well. Now, I never like to solely rely on clinical trials because especially when it comes to nutrition, there are always variables, but there does appear to be a strong correlation between a higher pesticide load or exposure and reduced fertility. So firstly, yes, going organic is a great way to avoid pesticide exposure because organic foods have been grown without the use of these harmful chemicals, so they are a great option. And if we lived in a perfect world, that's likely what we'd all do. But in reality, organic produce can not only be time-consuming to source, but it can also be expensive. There are some great companies who have weekly delivered boxes, which can be a great alternative and quite convenient. But the main thing I recommend to my patients is to look at the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen list of foods. These are a list of foods with a higher pesticide load versus the foods with a lower pesticide load. Now, if you haven't heard of the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, I have a free download on my website, so I'll give you a link where you can download that for yourself. But the main thing to be aware of is that the more porous the fruits and vegetables, they will have a higher pesticide load because basically, just like the celery stick did, they absorb more of the pesticides throughout the fruits and vegetables. So these includes foods like strawberries, of course, celery, spinach, kale, grapes, compared to those with a tougher outer layer. So foods like eggplant, watermelon or melons and bananas. So grab a copy of that list so that you can start to make better choices around those higher pesticide load foods. As I mentioned before, the good and the bad news is that some people will be more affected by these pesticides than others. There are many factors which determine how your body copes with these chemicals. And these include genetics, stress levels, digestion, metabolism, and detoxification pathways. So, I often hear people say, my next door neighbor eats terribly, never organic. And, she has 6 kids. Yet I do everything right and I still have difficulties. Now, unfortunately, for better or worse, we are all different. I'm doing a lot of research into genetics and epigenetics at the moment, which is really a fascinating topic. But it's really important not to draw comparisons because we are all different. The good news is that regardless of your genetic predisposition, you can reduce the impact these pesticides are potentially having on your fertility, not only by reducing your exposure, of course, and grab a copy of that list, but also by improving our body's ability to remove and deal with these toxins from your system. So speak with a naturopath. Like myself, I see patients all over via Zoom and Skype, or your local practitioner who can look at your detoxification pathways and support healthy nutrient metabolism and healthy clearance of these unavoidable toxins. Because research is showing that reducing toxin load alone, whilst of course a great step in the right direction, some people may need more support than others to enable them to properly clear those toxins from their system. So if you are experiencing any digestive issues like bloating, reflux, diarrhea, constipation, food sensitivities or allergies, you may fall into that category. So I would recommend getting some support, some professional help to support your clearance pathways and optimize your chances of conceiving and carrying your healthy baby. So I hope that has given you a little bit of insight into organic versus non-organic, how and why it can impact your fertility, as well as some strategies that you can use to support your fertility health. And be sure to grab that download so you can start to make healthy choices around these higher pesticide loads foods. And also be sure to check out my previous episode, which I did on another common toxin related to food storage, and that's BPA. So be sure to jump on my Facebook page and check that one out. As always, if you would like more personal support on your fertility journey, I do always make time in my calendar for you to book in a free 15-minute chat with me about your personal situation, where I will give you as much advice as I can to help move you closer to your happy, healthy baby. I look forward to seeing you next time for another episode of Talking Fertility.